Good evening. I'm not sure. Everybody seems to be on mute and have cameras off, but Eileen, if you're there, let me know. I have a question for you.
Hey Beth, what's up?
Hey, I know you circulated minutes from December 2nd and 16th. Are we going to approve both of those minutes tonight?
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, yes.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to double check.
Okay.
Hello, Maggie.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Oh, wow. I'm hoping for a calmer meeting than yours last night.
Well, yes, but I thought it was okay. I mean, at the end of the day, that isn't the first time I've seen that happen, that behavior. And so I think that you have to, people can't be spoken to that. It's the same way you can't be spoken to that way. It's unacceptable. We need to have some comportment about us.
And I think we will. We will strive to do our jobs.
Yep. I'm very quiet, as you noticed, up there. I don't say anything.
Welcome to be a participant and ask questions, and that's why we're here. So looking forward.
Right. Yeah, me too. Me as well.
And Joe, I see you're with us. Hopefully you're not having any technical problems, but Joe, you're both on mute and your camera is off. So if you can hear me, let's see if we can get you turned on.
Is Eileen on? I had a question for her.
She was just there. Yeah, I think she,
okay.
She's on mute, so let's just make sure.
Okay. Oh, hi, Eileen. Happy New Year.
How can I help you with?
I have a question. I printed out this as you instructed.
Yes. So what'll happen is Ed's going to give you, Sanjeev, Dan Bear, and ask you to do is sign that, and he'll watch you sign it, and then he's going to physically sign one of the forms I sent him, and then you'll subsequently send that back to me, so I'll just have it on file.
Okay, perfect.
That's all.
Okay.
It's really for you to have it there and you to physically sign it so he can say he witnessed you signing it. So.
Okay, terrific. Awesome. I know I'm a notary as well, so I get that. Okay, thank you, Eileen.
You're welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Eric. Happy New Year.
Thank you, you too.
Eileen, did Joe actually come in and was he on ever?
No, he just came in, I brought him over and he's been, I think he just signs on early and just so that he knows he can be, he's here, so he just had to turn his camera on, so I think.
Okay, I didn't know if we should check, but okay. All right, we'll trust the process.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Sanjeev.
Hey,
Hey, good
Eileen. Hey, Beth.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Jorge.
Thank you, Sanjeev, and congratulations for you and Maggie.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Maggie.
Good evening, Sanjeev. How are you?
Good, good. Hey, Srini.
Hey, Sanjeev. Hi. Hi, everybody.
Good evening, Ed.
How are you?
Doing okay. How you feeling?
Okay. Eileen, do you want me or Beth to begin prior to the meeting to swear in our new members as they join?
Yeah, we could do that. We have Maggie. Dan is here, but not here.
Okay, well, we'll wait till Dan comes on.
We have Maggie, Sanjeev, Srini, and I mean, he's on our side, but he hasn't. Wait, Joe Steinberg left and came back. Oh, that's not a good sign.
For those of you who will be taking the oath of office tonight, we're going to do them individually. And I will ask each of you individually as we go through it to stand. I'll stand. You'll repeat the oath after me. And then I would ask that you sign. I think Eileen had emailed to everyone copies of the oaths of office. So after you're sworn in, I just like to watch you sign the oath. I have a comparable oath here, and I will sign the acknowledgement, and then we'll send them all to Eileen. She'll clip them together, and we'll have a unified oath. Okay, so with that, Maggie, do you want to start? If you'll just stand and raise your right hand, and let me get your oath here. Please repeat after me. I, Maggie Miggins. Oh, you need to unmute, Maggie.
So sorry about that.
Okay, that works. Repeat after me. I, Maggie Miggins,
I, Maggie Miggins,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all the duties of the office
all the duties of the office
of Class 3 member of the Millburn Township Planning Board,
of Class 3 member of the Millburn Township Planning Board,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank
You
you.
will be seated and sign your oath.
I shall.
Thank you.
Can you
And
see
if
it?
you just, perfect, very good, thank you. I will
Yes.
right now attest to your signature.
Thank you, sir.
Sanjeev, why don't we get to you, if you will please rise. Raise your right hand.
Start video.
Okay, I guess there's too much light there, huh?
Okay.
And repeat after
Okay.
me. I, Sanjeev Vinyak,
I, Sanjeev Vinayak,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will solemnly, could you repeat that again?
Yes, that I will support the Constitution of the United States
That I'll support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and that I will bear the true allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and the government established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
I do further solemnly swear
I defer and solemnly swear
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all of the duties of the office
all the duties of the office
of Class 1 member of the Millburn Township Planning Board,
of Class 1 member of the Millburn Township Planning Board,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, sir. Please
Thank
sign your oath.
you, Mr. Buzak.
You're welcome.
And here it is.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. I am now acknowledging that oath.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bear. If you will please stand. Raise your right hand. And repeat after me. I, Daniel Bear,
I, Daniel Bear,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state,
under the authority of the people.
the authority of the people.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all the duties of the office of Class 4 member of the Millburn Township Planning Board,
all the duties of the office of Class 4 member of the Millburn Planning Board,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir. Please be seated, and if you will sign your oath. Thank you, sir. I will now acknowledge Mr. Bear's oath. And we have
I
one
didn't sign
more.
it, Maggie Miggins. I just wanted
Pardon
to-
me?
I didn't sign it, Maggie Miggins. I just wanted-
Very good. Sinrini, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Srini, that's right.
Srini, BJ, please stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Srini BJ,
I, Srini Vijay,
solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in the state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all the duties of the office of
all the duties of the office of
alternate number 2 of the Millburn Township Planning Board,
alternate number 2 of the Millburn Township Planning Board,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir. If you please be seated, sign your oath in front of me. Thank you very much. I'm now acknowledging Mr. BJ's oath of office.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
I
Rizal.
believe, Madam Chairwoman, we've completed all of the oaths of office, and if we're ready, we can begin the meeting.
Okay, I will read the Section 5 notice. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall, posting on the front door of Town Hall, forwarding to the Millburn Township Clerk, and mailing to the item in Star Ledger, which publications are the officially designated newspapers. A list of the meeting dates annually, indicating that this meeting would take place on Wednesday, January 6, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom webinar. As a reminder, in accordance with Section 7A of the Open Public Meetings Act, planning boards in general and the Millburn Township Planning Board in particular do not entertain general public comment as it is otherwise required for a municipal governing body or a board of education. However, all members of the public shall have the right to ask questions of witnesses presented by applicants during the course of a public hearing on an application for development, and will further have the right to make any comments with regard to that application at the appropriate time when recognized by the chair. At the appropriate time, the chair will announce that members of the public can ask questions of any witness, and thereafter the chair will announce that members of the public can make any comment related to the application for development being considered by the board. When open to the public by the chair, members of the public may use the raise your hand function shown on the Zoom screen. The individual will be recognized and brought into the virtual room for questions or comments. Each member of the public who participates in such a process will be asked to identify themselves by name and address. Proper decorum must be observed by all participants. There is a muting function that will be utilized if any member of the public or participant does not observe proper decorum or is disruptive or unruly. If such conduct persists, that individual may be removed from the public meeting. Daniel Bear?
Yes.
Gaston Halpert?
Yep.
Jorge Mastro Pietro?
Yes.
Mark Matzel?
Here.
Maggie Miggins?
Here.
Joseph Steinberg?
Here.
Sanjeev Vinayak?
Here.
David Morrow?
Here.
Srini Vijay?
Here.
Miriam Salerno?
Here.
Beth Zoll?
Here.
Okay. At this time, I would like to ask for a nomination for Chair of the Planning Board for the year 2021.
I would like to nominate Beth Zoll to continue as chair of the planning board for 2021.
Second.
Second.
Who was that? Dan, was that you first? I wasn't looking.
No, it's Mark.
It was Mark.
Okay, thank you.
He beat me to it. I tried, but Mark was faster.
Daniel Bear,
Yes.
Gaston Halpert,
Yes.
Jorge Mastro Pietro,
Yes.
Mark Matzel,
Yes.
Maggie Miggins,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg,
Yes.
Sanjeev Vinayak,
Yes.
David Morrow,
Yes.
Miriam Salerno.
Yes.
Congratulations, Beth. I will now turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you very much. And with that, I would like to propose a vice chair position. Is that, it's not, I don't see that on the agenda.
It's right next. It
Oh,
should
I see election of vice chairman, apologies. And I would like to nominate Miriam Salerno to back to the position of vice chair, if she would accept the nomination. Is there a second?
Second.
I think David got it.
David got it, yeah. Daniel Bear,
Yes.
Gaston Halpert,
Yes.
Jorge Mastro Pietro,
Yes.
Mark Matzel,
Yes.
Maggie Miggins,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg,
Yes.
Sanjeev Vinayak,
Yes.
David Morrow,
Yes.
Beth Zoll.
Yes,
Congratulations.
thank you. Congratulations. And thank you, Miriam, for your service. Our next item on the agenda is appointment of our planning board attorney. I think we all agree we could not have survived either in-person or virtual planning board meetings without our trusted, tried and true attorney. Been happy to be represented by Ed Buzak, and I would nominate to have Ed Buzak return as our board attorney.
I'll second the nomination.
Daniel Bear,
Yes.
Gaston Halpert,
Yes.
Jorge Mastro Pietro,
Yes.
Mark Matzel,
Yes.
Maggie Miggins,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg,
Yes.
Sanjeev Vinayak,
Yes.
Miriam Salerno,
Yes.
Beth Zoll.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
thank you for your service. And similarly, we have the appointment of our planning board secretary. Eileen, once again, you have risen to the challenges, and keep us organized and informed. So we would love to have you back for the next year.
I would
I nominate Eileen Davitt.
I second.
I second.
second.
Oh,
Got me.
beat ya.
Daniel Bear,
Yes.
Gaston Halpert,
Yes.
Jorge Mastro Pietro,
Yes.
Mark Matzel,
Yes.
Maggie Miggins,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg,
Yes.
Sanjeev Vinayak,
Yes.
Miriam Salerno,
Yes.
Beth Zoll.
Yes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda I notice is a resolution of approval of 2021-22 annual notice.
Correct. We we adopted the date, but the resolution is specifically the resolution of the annual notice. So we are going to do that at this meeting.
Wonderful. So that's is that a roll call vote as well, requiring a nomination and a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody like to nominate to approve?
I move the resolution.
I second that.
Daniel Bear,
Yes.
Gaston Halbert,
Yes.
Jorge Mastro Pietro,
Yes.
Mark Matzel,
Yes.
Maggie Miggins,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg,
Yes.
Sanjeev Benayak,
Yes.
Miriam Salerno,
Yes.
Beth Zoll.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to approval of minutes. And then for this, we will, have abstaining those members who were not present at the December 2nd and 16th meetings, or if they were present, were not on the planning board. So just those members who were in attendance and are still on the board. So let's begin with the December 2nd, 2020 minutes. We have both December 2nd and we'll also review and approve, if so inclined, on the 16th minute. So let's start with December 2nd, please. Did anybody have any further edits or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will move to approve the minutes from December 2nd.
I'll second.
Thanks, Gaston. Okay, all in favor of approving?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and abstentions from those I just mentioned. Thank you. Minutes from December 2nd, 2020 approved. Let's move on to December 16th, 2020, which were circulated, I think, earlier this week. I think they came on Monday.
I just had one minor correction in the fourth to last paragraph on page 2. Second sentence from the end, the adjacent property owner's driveway is 4 to 5 feet from the transformer.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anybody, I will nominate to, with that correction, approve the minutes of December 16th. Would anybody like?
I'll
to?
second.
Oh, a second.
Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, and abstentions from those who were not.
I'd like to abstain because I haven't read them.
Okay, an abstention from Joe as well. Okay, but that said, the minutes from December 16th will also are passed. Thank you. We have one memorialization tonight before we move on to our application. That was from application 20013. We received a draft and then and I don't believe it was redlined, but it was a second draft I have dated December 20th.
That is correct.
Okay. I don't know the changes between the 8th and the 20th.
I think you only received the 20th one. The one on the 8th was an internal
That makes sense.
So we didn't send that one out. We should have taken that off the.
That's okay.
Board did not see that.
Okay, great. And that also reflects. Go ahead.
Eligible to vote on this are Daniel Bear, Gaston, Jorge, Mark, Joe, Miriam, and Beth.
Okay, great.
I move to adopt the memorialization.
I will second that.
In calendar 20-013.
Daniel Bear,
Thank you.
Yes.
Gaston Halbert,
Yes.
Jorge Mastro Pietro,
Yes.
Mark Matzel,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg,
Yes.
Miriam Salerno,
Yes.
Beth Zoll.
She agrees. I think Beth is frozen.
Yes. Is,
Okay.
approved.
Ed, Susan Crawford, do you want me to bring her over or is she, I just noticed she's in the,
Yeah, you can bring her over. That would be
I
fine.
am getting a,
applicant.
okay.
Thank you. I think we've lost Beth there for a second.
I
Beth,
think
you
we
look
have.
like you're frozen.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, there she is.
She back.
She's back.
Sorry, have I frozen?
You're
I
back
think
now.
I'm back.
You're back now.
Apologies. Okay. Let us go ahead and begin application 20011,
Okay, I will bring
advanced
over
accelerator application.
James Weber, who is the attorney. And I'll let him tell me who else to bring over.
All right, before we begin on this application, I noticed something a couple of hours ago when I reread the statement of the attorney, which is called a memorandum in support of an application for development. And I want to read a 5 or 6 line paragraph into the record and then ask our attorney for an opinion.
Joe, before you do that, I'd like to officially recuse myself from this application. So I just, before you read anything. Okay?
And
Thank you.
Dan, just to confirm,
Good night, Dan.
so Eileen, just to confirm, you'll move Dan to the attendee mode.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
I'm gone. Bye.
Good night. What I'd like to read is the top paragraph on the last page of this memorandum. It says, likewise, the proposed site plan will conform the plans consistent with the planning board's records and existing conditions. Because the proposal is working with lawfully existing building and accessory structures, there are design constraints with achieving the overall improvements, which may require either variances or waivers as the application proceeds through the board's review. Such deficiencies include, by way of example and not limitation, parking aisle width, parking space size, as well as pre-existing non-conforming building front yard setbacks of 14.3 and 14.6 feet, where 24 feet is required. Frankly, that's the end of the quotation. Let me just say that frankly, I don't understand what is meant by there are design constraints with achieving the overall improvements, which may require either variances or waivers as the application proceeds through the board's review. That's not the way the law works, is in my understanding. If there are variances required, and here both buildings are set back approximately 14 feet from the street, where a 24-foot setback is required. And it seems to me that the board is going to be asked at some point, according to what I just read, to issue a variance, a C variance, for a front yard setback. But in my judgment, that's not the way the law works. If you need a front yard setback, you put it in your notice up front, and it's listed when the notices go out to adjoining property owners within 200 feet, and is in the notice that is published in the newspapers. So I just noticed that this afternoon. Otherwise, I would have brought it to the attention of Mr. Buzak earlier. But the question I have is, is there a variance required? Are there not two variances required for these two buildings, which are in part the subject matter of tonight's application? And if so, shouldn't those C variance requests for front yard setbacks have been in the notice? Maybe they are. I don't have a copy of the notice. It didn't come in my packet. And if it's not there, I'm asking the question, shouldn't there have been a variance request in connection with this application? And shouldn't it have been in the notice if it was not in the notice?
If I might, Madam Chair,
Please.
I had the same issue when I read the application, which is what I usually start with when I look at the matter. And I was a little puzzled by the statement or the memorandum that was cross-referenced on many sections of the application, and the specific language that Mr. Steinberg read. I looked back to just see if there was anything else in the application in terms of seeking a variance, and the application simply sought preliminary major and final major site plan approval, but there was no indication that there was a request for a variance in the application form. And in fact, I even put a little notation on no variances ? Before I got even to the point where Mr. Steinberg got. I did look at the notice that was published and distributed to interested parties within 200 feet. And the notice was much more comprehensive than the memorandum from which Mr. Steinberg read, and actually much more specific than the application that had been filed led. It did specifically seek variances, design waivers from the strict enforcement of our zoning ordinances and development regulations, and then went on to articulate, if my calculation is correct here, six different deviations, not distinguishing variances from exceptions or design waivers, but went on to articulate very, very specifically 6 areas where they would be seeking relief. One of those is, in fact, what Mr. Steinberg has pointed out, the front yard setbacks of 14.3 feet and 14.6 feet where 24 feet is required. There were others as well that are set forth, which I'm sure the applicant will get into as we proceed through the application. I think that the important thing here is that the notice, both the published notice and the individual notice, set forth the relief sought by the applicant. And after speaking with the planner, our planner, earlier this afternoon about a couple of items, I am satisfied that the notice is sufficient for the relief that is being sought. And I believe it encompasses all of the items that Mr. Steinberg has mentioned. I will point out one thing that we as the board are going to have to consider as well, and I'll raise it now so that the applicant's counsel can also consider it. a number of these, and specifically, let me just focus on one, and that's the one that Mr. Steinberg raised, the front yard setback of 14.3 feet and 14.6 feet, where 24 feet is required. We handle those in two different ways. This is a pre-existing condition. The buildings are there, they've been there, and it's a pre-existing nonconformity. An applicant in that situation has two choices depending upon the balance of the application. The first choice is if the application relief being sought does not aggravate or intensify the nonconformity, the applicant has the ability to effectively rest, so to speak, or rely upon the existence of that pre-existing nonconformity in order to proceed through the application. Even in that case where there is no intensity increase or aggravation of that condition, an applicant also has the right to, at that point, request the board to legitimize that deviation, that is to grant the variance. The difference between those two is the consequence. In the first instance, if the applicant does not seek a variance, it remains a nonconformity. And if, for example, that building were destroyed, the applicant would be unable to reconstruct that building with a 14-foot, 14.3 or 14.6 foot front yard setback without seeking a variance at that time. On the other hand, if the applicant seeks a variance now and obtains a variance, then if that building is destroyed, the applicant will have the right, because that variance runs with the land, to rebuild that building at 14 feet, 14.6 and 14.3. Typically, my advice to a board is if there is no aggravation of the nonconformity or intensification of that nonconformity as a result of the application, that the board should not be granting variances, because the purpose of the zoning in the first place is to create certain uniformity. And once that's imposed, the idea is that if a building is destroyed, then that building should be reconstructed based upon the current zoning. So I discourage boards from granting variances in that case. On the other hand, if there is an intensification and the applicant is required to seek the variance, then the board, should look at it on the merits. In this case, it appears, and again, I'll leave this to the applicant and the proofs that they submit. It does appear that they may be seeking, and I say may because it's a little vague, but they may be seeking a variance. So effectively, they may be asking you to legitimize that nonconformity. The board will have the right, based upon the evidence that's presented, to decline to do that if they so choose, and still approve the application. And what that does, as I said, is it doesn't legitimize that nonconformity prospectively. It's there, it remains there, and that's it. But if that building is subsequently destroyed in some catastrophe or whatever, then it can't be rebuilt with a 14-foot setback. It would have to conform, or they'd have to seek a variance at that time. I'm sorry, that's a very long answer to a relatively short question, but I thought I'd take the opportunity to sort of set the scene for the board, because there's a number of deviations that we're going to be talking about tonight, and the board should be aware of the options that they have. And I will, if appropriate, jump in if I can or should, and give the board advice sort of simultaneously if that's necessary.
Thank you.
If it didn't answer Mr. Steinberg's question, the answer was long enough that everybody forgot what the question was anyway.
So Joe, do you feel you have an answer?
It answered my question. You said, Ed, that there were 6, I think you said, things that were mentioned in the notice.
Yes.
Since I at least didn't get a notice, copy of the notice, I would like to know what the others are.
Well, let me read you right from the notice that was provided, and I do want to, if I didn't already implicitly, I want to explicitly compliment the applicant on the notice. It was one of the most comprehensive notices I've seen in a long time with regard to applications, particularly when deviations are being requested. So let me list these the deviations that they have noted. First one is the number of access driveways, where the ordinance permits a maximum of 2 driveways and 3 existing driveways are proposed. Second one is access to parking spaces, where the ordinance requires avoidance of dead-end aisles, and an existing dead-end aisle is proposed. Third one are buffers to parking spaces and loading areas. The ordinance requires a buffer in accordance with another section of the ordinance, which states that the buffer area equivalent to 20% the average width or depth of the property to a maximum of 50 feet with evergreen plantings. Whereas the applicant's situation is it's a 90-foot buffer as opposed to a 50-foot, but the applicant does not propose an evergreen planting. Fourth deviation or potential deviation is curbing. The ordinance requires depressed curbing in the driveway area for sidewalks, and the existing driveway to be maintained does not have depressed curbing. The next one is parking aisle width for 60-degree parking spaces. The ordinance requires a width of 20 feet, that is an aisle width of 20 feet, and a width of approximately 15 feet is being proposed. And the last one is the one we mentioned earlier, and that is the standards regulating front yard setbacks. The ordinance requires 24 feet, whereas in this application, lot 85, the building on lot 85 has a 14.3 foot setback, and lot 84 has a 14.6 foot setback, and they're requesting a 14.3 foot setback for both lots. So I stand corrected. They are asking not just for legitimizing that, they're asking for a modification of it. And I believe that relates to some improvements that they're making to the front of the building, but we'll leave that to the proofs that are going to be set forth. So those are the 6 items that were noted in the notice itself, and I'm sure we'll hear testimony on all of that in a comprehensive way from the applicant.
Thank you.
And just the last thing, in light of the fact that, as Mr. Steinberger has pointed out, the application, and I pointed out, the application does not indicate any variances are being sought. I think the first order of business, unless I've misread everything that I've just opined to the board about, that the applicant amend the application to reflect these variances, and to the extent that there's any additional fees or charges that had to be submitted as part of that application, that those fees should be paid as part of any, well, they should be paid, period, but they certainly would be a condition in any action that the board would take, positive or negative. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so let's bring, well, is Mr. Weber, your counsel?
I am, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. James Weber on behalf of the applicant, Advanced Accelerator Applications, the owners and applicant of 45 East Willow and 57 East Willow Street. I appreciate the scrutiny that Mr. Steinberg engaged in, and I appreciate the well-versed language of Mr. Buzak. the board may want to consider whether to grant a variance with regard to the front yard setback, because there are going to be canopies that are going to be imposed on the front of those buildings, consistent with the setback, but nonetheless, we're going to be changing the face of the overall site as the two properties are consolidated. The property at 57 East Willow was previously before this board in 2015, where the board granted site plan approval with variances for that front yard setback for that property, as well as associated variances with regard to the pre-existing conditions of that approximately 1965-year-old building. At that time, the Advanced Accelerator applications received approval for its light manufacturing, and that light manufacturing is, and I'm going to read that now, if I can scroll down on my page. Come on.
While you're doing that, Mr. Weber, I would like to ask you if I'm the only one on the board who does not have a copy of the 2015 resolution.
Do not have it either.
It was included as part of the application package, and we,
I don't have it.
all right.
No, it's not. It wasn't stapled, included in the, or sometimes it's a second 8.5 by 11 set, but I don't have that either.
Well, in we can certainly provide that to the board. And as part of that application, the 2015 approval allowed Advanced Accelerator to implement the light manufacturing. And what was going on there was that they involved a radiopharmaceutical cancer treatment. And the FDA has validated that improvement, and it's for those patients who have a rare and often fatal form of neuroendocrine cancer. These patients have been left with very few treatment options, and the particular therapy that was approved in 2015 involves the production of radioisotopes, which have a very short half-life, that in combination with a targeting molecule have a high affinity for neuroendocrine cancer cells. These are considered smart radioisotopes. They have a very short half-life, which means that the production, delivery, and patient administration all must occur within a 72-hour window. The FDA has approved that, and as a result, there are, as we speak, interior renovations going on at 57 pursuant to a construction permit issued by the township. Now, that construction permit was based upon the condition agreed to by Advanced Accelerator that the accessory improvements to the exterior of 57, a handicapped accessible ramp, an emergency generator, and the HVAC system be ratified to be consistent so that you have a plan that now encompasses the entire property. The driving factor that brings this application before the board for site plan review and approval is the consolidation of the two properties. Under 609.9, when you consolidate two properties, which is permitted, and you have two principal buildings, that consolidation requires site plan approval. And it is that consolidation that has presented this application before the board tonight. There's benefits for the applicant in terms of having a comprehensive site. There's certainly benefits for the municipality in having a site that's going to be well regulated on a comprehensive basis. And looking at Mr. Luzak's comments, as mentioned before, with regard to do you grant a variance or do you leave it as a pre-existing non-conforming standard? One of the benefits of using variances is that the board exercises its authority. It exercises its control. Allowing a pre-existing non-conforming status means that, yes, the applicant is at risk if the building is destroyed, but more importantly, the board's ability to impose conditions is limited with regard to that aspect. Because there's going to be here a change in the perspective as seen from the street, it would be recommended that the board consider treating it as a variance so that it retains the ability to exercise its local dominion over the facades of those buildings. In terms of the consolidation of the properties, the current property at 57 has 2 dead-end aisles, 45 has a dead-end aisle, and what's going to be proposed is to have a circulation pattern that utilizes the driveway between the two and circulates between the 2 buildings, allowing the employees there to be able to drive without having to dead end and come back again. In terms of the other improvements, there's loading docks that are proposed, a generator, and what's called an UPS enclosure. An UPS enclosure, I always thought it was for the UPS delivery service, but it's not. It's an uninterrupted power supply, and that would serve 57. And what happens is if there's a power interruption, at that point, the generator will kick in, but not for several minutes. Because the generator doesn't kick in for several minutes, the UPS uninterrupted power supply provides an electrical support for the operations of 57. That is one of the requests that are being presented. Well, it's an accessory structure, and that's part of the site plan that's being presented as the Advanced Accelerator combines these 2 properties. The 45 is going to be occupied by administrative offices that will support 57. Currently, those employees supporting 57 are on Bleecker Street in a rental property. At this point, they'll be brought in adjacent to the 57 and allow for the communication, not just in person, but electronically between the 2 buildings in a manner that is much more efficient toward the beneficial production of these radiological pharmaceutical products for neuroendocrine cancer. In talking about the notice, there was the opportunity to hear from Ms. Davitt that neighbors were interested in this application. And thanks to the neighbors, there was the opportunity for Advanced Accelerator to speak with them. I believe that they had 2 conference calls, and then Advanced Accelerator went out and met with the neighbors from the neighbors' property to see what their concerns were with regard to the existing 57 and their concerns with what's going to happen with 45. I believe that there is a list of 10 items that came up, and among those are items that are reflected in your township forester's comment, where he's looking for approximately a dozen evergreen trees and to have them placed. With regard to that, and to fill in the other evergreen trees which are behind 57, with regard to that, that requires a separate permit from the Department of Environmental Protection for a flood hazard. We already have our permits from the DEP for the work that's proposed before the board tonight, and this would require another permit from the DEP, a requirement that Advanced Accelerator is willing to engage in. As part of that, they would also respond to the neighbors' concerns about having a fence. So when you have that double driveway come in and you will have headlights, putting a fence back there so as to obscure the headlights. Again, part of the application that would be presented to the DEP, and again, something that Advanced Accelerator is willing to do. One of the other concerns was that the proposed lights behind 45, which are wall packs, and those wall packs are going to be LEDs and they will be shielded. Nonetheless, the neighbors asked whether or not there would be the ability to have that lighting directed toward the building rather than toward the homeowners. Again, it will require DEP permit, probably a general permit, but we're hoping not an individual permit. The other point was that the windows behind 57 require the plantings to grow up. They are bright, And so in the while the application's before the DEP, the consideration given by AAA is to have tinting put on those windows to address that. One of the other concerns was that the neighbors were indicating that at 4 o'clock in the morning, and all of this will be confirmed by the testimony of Rob Gunning. I'm just laying out a proffer so that the board understands and has a perspective as to what brings us before the board and what the relief is that we're requesting. Apparently there were trucks that were making noises at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. Turns out it was the garbage truck that serves other properties, and it was using the property as a staging area. So Advanced Accelerator has spoken to them and addressed that. Likewise, the neighbors asked for a certain period of time from the morning to the evening for deliveries. I believe that that time will be 8 to 7. We'll confirm that in testimony, with the exception for emergencies. They asked that there be no rooftop equipment on 45. That's accessible. That's acceptable. There is no rooftop equipment proposed for the top of 45. And now I'm trying to remember what else. Oh, the garbage deliveries would be at 7 o'clock. They couldn't make it any later because at that point the parking lots start to fill. And then there was a question about safety beepers, but as the board I'm sure is aware, those beepers are a safety element that is beyond the ability of Advanced Accelerator to address. I have available the testimony of Rob Gunning on behalf of Advanced Accelerator, Sanjay Patel of PSNS as a civil engineer, and then in reserve, should the board have any questions of the architect or of the traffic engineer or our environmental expert, we have those available as well. Unless the board has any questions of me, I would ask that Rob Gunning be sworn in to give testimony in this matter.
Thank you. So before we continue proceeding, can I just get clarification for myself? We are going to treat these as variances. Is that what your recommendation was?
Yes. Okay. And the variances would be based upon the fact that these are lawfully existing structures, and the lawfully existing structures inhibit the extent to which the property can be brought into conformance with the regulations of the Township of Millburn.
Okay, thank you. And I believe there are also checklist waivers. And Mr. Buzak, I don't know if you would prefer that we handle those earlier in the application. Mr. Weber, if I apologize if that gets you out of order.
No, I think, Madam Chairwoman, you're right. We should address those. The primary one, I believe, and I'll defer to our engineer and secretary, was a requested waiver for the environmental impact statement.
Right.
And the second one, I believe, for the checklist items anyway, were the protective covenants, deeds, restrictions, easements, and so forth, which they would make available upon request.
With regard to the EIS, we have contacted the DEP. We have permits from them, or confirmation that the permits by rule are acceptable to them. So that has been examined, that has been presented, and has been approved by the DEP. So we do have that. And because the sites are existing and otherwise fully developed, it would ask that there be a waiver of the EIS.
So Mr. Weber, are those approvals, have they been submitted to Millburn Township?
I'm not sure. I'll check with Sanjay Patel, who's here to testify with regard to that matter, and Brian McCrae of PSNS is also available to respond to that. And what it is, Madam Chairwoman, these were permits by rule. So in other words, the rules allow you to have certain permits if the modifications are minor.
Okay.
Anticipating that the board would be interested in that, the PSNS went the extra step, asked them to confirm that in writing, and I believe that they have confirmed that in writing.
Okay, yeah, I think we would like to certainly confirm that. And then I would also like to just invite our engineer, Martha, if you had any further questions or comments regarding the EIS item.
I agree with Mr. Weber in his, we did receive a letter from the DEP, and that was in my packet, that all of the items would come under a permit by rule. And I didn't see a reason, because this is an existing building, for an EIS. So I agree with Mr. Weber in that regard.
Okay, and thank you for confirming you have the letter as well. I appreciate that. Okay.
If I may,
Madam Chair, I would say
Madam
that if-
Chairwoman?
Oh, apologies. Mr. Weber, go ahead, and then I'll ask Mr. Buzek.
Thank you. If the board approves the application, then I would submit that the approval would be subject to a condition that the applicant file the requisite permits to put the landscaping in as requested by the neighbors and that they've agreed to. And as a result, we're going to be going back to the DEP, not for a permit by rule, but by a full permit, whether it's a general permit, which we're hoping, or an individual permit.
Okay, understood. And Mr. Buzak, did you have a comment?
Well, I have a comment now in response to what Mr. Weber has said, and then I have the one I was going to make. With regard to what Mr. Weber said, I raised a question, if the DEP does not grant the permits, then the requested relief that your client is willing to undertake will be mooted. Is that correct?
That's a good point, Mr. Buzak. What I would suggest is that the board retain jurisdiction over the application, over not just the regular status, but a specific retention of jurisdiction with regard to the presentation of the application to the DEP. I think, and it'll be confirmed in the testimony of Mr. Gunning, they're anticipating getting those permits into the DEP within 60 days, if not sooner. Mr. Patel is optimistic that the DEP will, with the support of the board, to the extent that the board says we would appreciate any consideration that the DEP can give this application, that the DEP will look upon the planting favorably. We're not sure about the fencing as well, but the fencing is really designed for those areas where the headlights would go back to the property. So it's not as though there would be fencing along the entire back. With regard to the lighting, relocating the wall packs to an area back so that they don't shine toward the property, but shine toward the building in East Willow. We're hopeful they'll agree with that, but that's a design solution, I believe, that PSNS can come up with that would satisfy the DEP and assure that positive result.
All right, I think that may become clearer as we go along in the application and hear the actual testimony. The comment, Madam Chair, that I was going to make was just if I think we should take a separate vote early on now on whether the waiver for the EIS and for the protective covenants, deed restrictions, and easements should be granted. Because if we're not going to waive that, then the application is effectively not complete, and we'll have to carry the application to another day.
Understood. And before we do that, Eileen, I believe Samantha Alfonso is in the attendee mode.
Yes.
But has her hand raised, but she's, yeah. And
She's
for
a
those
fe-
of the
He's a
rest of
fellow
you who are-
attorney, Madam Chairwoman.
Yeah, she's the attorney along with Mr. Weber. She's, hold on.
Right, that's why I just wanted to bring her in.
She just.
Thank you.
Sure, I just didn't know if you had any anything that you needed to be added before we were going to take the vote that we're about to take.
Not yet, thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, So per council's recommendation, I think we will, and given what we heard from our engineer as well as Mr. Weber, would anybody be so moved to approve? Were we going to take them one at a time, Mr. Buzak?
It's your choice. I suppose we could do them separately because people may have a view on one and not on the other, or the same view on both. So let's do them separately.
Okay, let's do them separately. Does anybody want to move to approve accepting and moving forward with the application, granting the EIS request for waiver? Okay, well, I can make a motion to proceed with the application granting the EIS waiver request. Go ahead, Mark.
I just have a question related to, to runoff. Is there any intent, and I didn't see it in the application and I could have missed it, to grade any of the water or direct any of the water into the West Branch?
That'll be addressed by the civil engineer, and I think the plan is following the existing grading that is already in existence with the properties. I believe also that there's a storm easement that the township has that goes between the two properties, where the storm water from East Willow goes into the West Branch of the rollway.
Yeah, my question is though, is there going to, I mean, I don't know what your permeability is like. I don't know what the runoff rate is. I mean, I haven't seen it, and it may be in there's one map that I haven't had time to review.
We'll have Sanjay Patel, who's a civil engineer, address that question.
So should we have Mr. Patel sworn in to provide testimony?
If you want to do that at this point, we can do that.
Sure.
I would ask that Sanjay Patel be called to the stand to be sworn in to give testimony in this matter.
Okay, welcome, Mr. Patel, and we'll have you sworn in.
Okay, Mr. Patel, if you would just raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in tonight's hearing to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you would just state your name for the record, please, spelling your name.
Sanjay Patel. First name is Sanjay, S-A-N-J-A-Y. Last name is Patel, P-A-T-E-L.
Thank you.
And are you presenting his qualifications?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Patel, would you state your qualifications for the record?
So I'm by education, have master's degree in civil engineering, construction, and general engineering. And I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey and New York.
Have you testified in other municipalities and before other municipal agencies?
Yes, I have testified in multiple municipalities recently or just a month ago.
Would you name a couple that would be geographically close to Millburn?
The city of Summit. Before that was Kearney, Township of Kearney, and then several others before that.
Are you familiar with the application that's currently pending before the board?
Yes, I am.
And how did you achieve that familiarity?
I prepared the site plans.
Are you familiar with the Township of Millburn and the Millburn ordinances?
Yes, I am.
And how did you achieve that familiarity?
With our other projects in the past and the current, review of the ordinance.
And you've inspected the site?
Yes, I have.
You've heard the board member's question with regard to the management of stormwater. Would you be able to refer to a plan and to describe the existing conditions and the proposed conditions with regard to the management of stormwater on the site? And perhaps I could ask Ms. Alfonso if you want to, are you going to share your screen, Mr. Patel, or would you prefer that Ms. Alfonso pull it up?
With the board's permission, I would like to share my screen.
Thank you. Yeah.
Before we do that, I I think the board needs to see if any board member has any questions on the qualifications of Mr. Patel. And if not, then we can accept his qualifications as a professional engineer. And just, sir, Mr. Patel, just to clarify, I assume that your license is in good standing currently?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buzak.
Thank you. Then we will hear Mr. Patel as a civil engineer. Thank
Sure.
you.
So I would like to share my screen and I believe everybody can see the screen.
Yes.
So this is the set of drawings. I will go to the grading and drainage plans.
And while you're doing that, Mr. Patel, I just wanted to mention to Mr. Weber and also you, sir, that our practice in Millburn is that even though drawings have been submitted when they are utilized in the hearing, each sheet is separately marked as an exhibit. We ask that you refer to that exhibit number so that the record is clear. So whenever you get to the proper sheet, if you can, we'll mark the first one A-1 and go on sequentially from there, 2, 3, A, 2, 3, 4, etc. So
Sure. The drawing we are looking at, lower right-hand corner, it's C06, grading and utilities plan. That'll be one. This is the same drawing that's been submitted, and town has it in their record.
Okay, and what's the date on that, sir? I used to be able to see those kinds of things, but I can't anymore.
No problem. I'm having trouble looking at that print. The date of the drawing.
9/23, I see up under your signature.
That's right, 9/23/20.
Okay.
So just for clarity, Ed, is this going to be A6 or how are we going to start?
I think it may be a little bit difficult to try to keep those numbers the same. So why don't we keep it A1 and we'll go that way.
So this is going to be A1, CO6.
This will be A1.
Got it.
Sheet C 06. Thank you, Mr. Patel.
You're welcome. All right, so with that, let me describe the storm drainage for lot 85 first. On lot 85, we are not changing any side improvements except for the addition of a loading docks on either side. And
Mr. Patel, this is Jim. Just hold on for a second. Would you please orient the board as to where East Willow Street is, where's 57 East Willow, where's 45, and where is the neighbors' properties behind the Rawway River? So that the board is oriented as to the buildings, its location, and understands what's going on with regard to your testimony, please.
Yes, so this is what we're looking at is the East Willow Street, 2 lots fronting on East Willow Street, lot 85, lot 84. Building 57 is on lot 85, 45. Building 45 is on lot 84. The properties extend beyond the south branch of Rawway River. And this is the property boundary in the back. This is west branch of Rawway River, and there is a wall along the northern side of the river. And part of the backyards of these residential properties are part of their backyards that belongs to the Novartis property. So that's general orientation. With that, let me zoom into the plans. So building 85. As I said, we have no surface improvements, no pavement changes, no grading changes. The only significant improvement that we are proposing in terms of stormwater the improvement that has an impact on stormwater is we are actually removing part of the pavement here. The idea is to remove the pavement from the riparian zone. We're doing the same thing on building 45 lot, and I'll go over that in a minute. But in other words, we are actually reducing the impervious area within that riparian zone. And we are adding a turnaround here. So there is a little bit of a impervious area added. But overall, combined two lots, we have net reduction in impervious area. The current drainage pattern is we have roof drains that are connected to the underground drainage system, and that has an outlet to the Rahway River. And we are not changing that. So we are not increasing any significant runoff to Rahway, the west branch of Rahway River for 57. Building 45 currently has roof drains on the west side of the building, and they will remain. We are removing and replacing all the existing pavement, which is in very poor condition. There is a ponding that regularly occurs at each storm event in the back of the parking. The current parking lot actually extends into all this area. We are also removing about 10 to 15 feet of pavement, which is within the riparian zone of the west branch of Rahway River, so that we can make an improvement on the sensitive, environmentally sensitive areas and eliminate that ponding. So in addition to the removal and replacement of the entire parking lot pavement, we'll be reducing permanently some of the area in the back and use that to have the sheet flow from the pavement, which is what the existing condition is, and it will be safely discharged into the waterways. Again, here we have a significant reduction in the impervious area. So the proposed, there is no impact on stormwater, either runoff or quantity or quality. In fact, the quality will be improved because we are reducing the impervious area. So same drainage pattern with no adverse impact on the existing storm drainage pattern. A little bit of reduced runoff into the river. So that's basically the storm drainage. If you have any questions, I can answer that.
Madam Chairwoman, should we just go through the rest of Mr. Patel's testimony at this point, or do you want to move on to the issue of the EIS?
I've got it.
I would, yeah, we'll work with the EIS, but I want to make sure Mr. Matzel's question is resolved. So thank you. I know we're getting there. Mr. Matzel, did you have any follow-up questions on that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Is it Mr. Patel? Is it Mr. Patel, the engineer? You basically referenced a safe discharge from the parking lot. What does that mean, a safe discharge?
So we have currently the water just ponds here and then it overflows. In proposed condition, the grading is done in a way that we will have a grass well, which will have which will provide enough capacity for this parking lot to drain and the roof runoff without any erosive velocities into the river. The width of the grass well will be safe so that there will not be any erosion.
Mark?
Yeah, you referenced a 15-foot. You said that area was 15 feet?
Roughly, yes. About.
Have you thought of incorporating either a bioswale or rain garden to basically better capture?
So Mark, I just want to, I apologize for cutting you off, but what we're doing is we're not talking about the application. We're first talking about whether we are willing to grant them the waiver request from having done an EIS. So I just want to make sure the questions that you're asking are pertinent to them understanding the site. And I think what Martha explained was that because there's no changes being made to the buildings except what Mr. Patel just described in terms of pervious or impervious area. The question is, are we willing to accept them not having an EIS? I think, and when we hear the application, if we get there, then I think the kinds of questions I'm hearing you ask are appropriate. But I want to allow you the opportunity to ask questions pertinent to should they have done an EIS, or are we willing to grant the waiver?
Okay, fine.
Okay, thank you. If you can unshare the screen, it's easier for me to see the grid. But thank you for that. Okay, Mr. Vinayak.
So I'm not sure if this is the right time to ask the question, but they are adjoining the two buildings, and they have a manufacturing facility there. And I'm not sure what they're producing there now versus what they will be producing later. That will have an impact on the environment. So giving them just a waiver on the environment, I'm not sure if should we get into what is their processing process, or what are they processing there? Will that have impact on the environment or not? I'm not sure what they're doing today and what they will be doing tomorrow.
Sure, I
can
think that's
respond to that.
thank you. I think that's an appropriate question, and I'm happy to have Mr. Weber respond to that.
The materials that are being produced there will be the same.
And how about the quantities?
The quantities will increase. So right now the FDA has approved it. And because of the FDA approval, you're going to see an increase in the amount of the pharmacological neuroendocrine treatments that will be generated from the site. In terms of the overall area within the building, there will be an increase in the amount of the production area. But in terms of its impact on the environment, there will be negligible. There'll be deliveries.
So
Go ahead,
sorry,
Mr.
go ahead,
Vinayak,
Madam
I'll allow
Chair.
you.
That's fine. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. But what you just mentioned, which is that there will be increased traffic, is specifically something that an EIS would address.
Right.
In terms of
And
traffic.
that's
In terms of the traffic, what we're talking about are the number of FedEx vehicles that would be coming to the site. That's
actually
the
not
extent
even-
of what we're talking about.
So, Mr. Weber, I'm not even worried about the traffic as of now. I'm just talking about, I deal with a lot of manufacturing plants. And when you are combining the two buildings, hopefully you're trying to get a new equipment there. If not, but you're trying to get an output that is increased within the plant. And within that output, again, if that is more of a pharmaceutical or whatever output or whatever product you're producing there, I think we should get the environmental study of what that hazard material, or if that is not hazard, what will be the impact with the new production, how much more output you're getting, and what will be that impact on the environment for that, whether it's out of water, whether it's out in the air, whether it's a waste material or anything of that sort.
Well, with respond to that, then let me have Mr. Gunning, the representative of Advanced Accelerator Applications, come and let him testify as to what the expected result will be of the increase in the productivity of the site.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. We welcome. So yes, let's have Mr. Gunning, who's here. Welcome, sworn in, please.
Sir, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in tonight's hearing to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spelling your name for the record, please.
My name is Robert Gunning. That's R-O-B-E-R-T. Last name G-U-N-N-I-N-G.
Thank you.
And so, Mr. Gunning, do you need the question sort of repeated to you, or do you have a sense of this?
If I may, Madam Chairwoman, let's do a little introduction. Mr. Gunning, what's your relationship with Advanced Accelerator Applications?
I'm an employee of the company, and I fulfill the role of Head of Finance Transformation. I'm the project lead on the renovation work that's being done at 45 Willow, and I'm on the steering committee of both the 45 Willow renovation as well as the 57 renovation.
And you're familiar with the application then that's pending before the board?
Yes,
And you're familiar with the Township of Millburn and the site that's in question?
yes, I am.
All right. And you've heard the question that's been posed by Mr. Vignani.
Vinay, yes.
Thank you. And with regard to what the efficiencies that are being proposed with regard to the renovation of the production facilities at 57 following the approval by the FDA. And can you
Yes.
also, while you're referring to that, describe the other governmental entities that regulate the production facility that you have at 57 already?
Yeah, so overall, our like we said before, our product is it's a nuclear medicine product to treat neuroendocrine cancer. As you can imagine, the FDA, it's a very regulated space. Okay, we cannot, due to you using nuclear radioisotopes as well as other waste products, we have to restrict all of that product. So it's nothing that we can emit out into the environment. We have to keep everything in a very close contained area. All of our radioactivity is done within a shielded lead walls. And also too, it's immediately detained to a waste area, which then is transported out via a contractor. So it's not like we can even circulate the internal air externally because we risk contamination into the building. Does that address the concern?
That answers the
Mr.
question
Gunning,
with
did you
regard.
just, sorry. Mr. Gunning, you said you're financial officer there?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so again, maybe you are completely aware of the operations that are being done there, but with the way you're saying it, it kind of sounds scary to me. Nuclear this or that, I'm not going to get into the detail on it. To me, it seems like we should get a better understanding on the operation, even though it's FDA approved, with the productivity going up or output going up. We want to make sure there is no impact on the hazard or the environment. Again, the question arises from the statement where the question was asked, should we just waive off the environmental for this application process? Whereas again, maybe everyone else may have a different thought process. I think on the operation end of it, I think we should also understand what the environmental impact is on the application. Thank you so much.
Okay, we have our site head, Bill Diamantopoulos, also present. Perhaps I could refer to have him sworn in to better answer the question.
That would be acceptable.
Who is that? I'm sorry.
Bill Diamantopoulos. Last name spelled Diamantopoulos.
Good evening, welcome.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. If you would just raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in tonight's hearing to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
I just need you to state your name, spelling your name for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Bill Diamantopoulos. First name is Bill, B-I-L-L. Last name is Diamantopoulos, D-I-A-M-A-N-T-O-P-O-U-L-O-S.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Diamantopoulos, would you state your position with regard to the applicant Advanced Accelerator applications?
Sure. I am the site head for the manufacturing facility at 57 East Willow.
And what are your qualifications in terms of your education?
I have a doctorate in pharmacy from the Rutgers University. I also have an authorized nuclear pharmacist certificate from the University of New Mexico and University of Arkansas.
You've heard the question that's been posed by the board member with regard to the established production facility and what is going to occur with the increase in the production of the medicine for the neuroendocrine cancer.
So the question was also, how do we operate and what do we manufacture? We manufacture Lutathera, which is the neuroendocrine cancer radiopharmaceutical. And the way that we do that is that we have automatic synthesis modules where we add reagents and they're essentially mixed and then they're formulated in order to create a bulk solution. From that bulk solution, our technicians essentially dispense that into separate vials, and those are what's shipped out to our patients and clients. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection inspects us very regularly. They actually were here, I believe it was about 4 or 5 months ago. And part of that is also the inspection of our emissions. We, due to the nature of the product, it's a radiopharmaceutical that does not volatilize. Volatilize means that it doesn't create into like a mist that goes into the air. Nevertheless, we also have environmental monitoring equipment within the facility that measures this. We have zero output of any radiopharmaceutical from our facility. And that's actually, again, due to the nature of the product. As far as any potential waste that we create during the manufacturing process, the waste is essentially product or material that has come in contact with the radioisotope. Any product that comes in contact with the radioisotope needs to be disposed of safely. We can't just essentially take that up and throw it out. It needs to be retained, and we need to keep that on site, and we keep them into waste rooms. These waste rooms then, after they have decayed to a safe level, they are picked up by our authorized courier, who is a certified vendor in the pickup of radioactive waste. And essentially they take that and then they cart it off and dispose of it into their facilities. So there's nothing that remains on site. As far as any potential impact, the only thing that I would say may have impact is of any air handlers of the facility. However, we're actually performing operational excellence that we're reducing any potential output or any potential waste that's being generated throughout the process. So that's my answer to that.
And Mr. Diamantopoulos, I had indicated that I understood that the half-life is 72 hours, or that's the period of time from the creation to the time that it has to be delivered to the patient. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, yes.
And one of the other questions was, what's the amount of deliveries and what type of vehicles will be used in the process to deliver it and to take it to the patients? And one of the reasons you're here is in order to access Newark Airport, is that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so Newark Airport is a hub for United Airlines. It also is a hub for FedEx. And that's the reason why we chose Millburn, due to its proximity to the Newark Airport. The FedEx trucks that come and pick up our medicine, they're essentially your FedEx trucks that deliver to your house. They're just the same size FedEx trucks. And the reason for that is because our product is essentially very small. They're in boxes that are called Type A radioactive packages that are certified prior to putting them onto FedEx trucks. But those are the trucks that come and pick up.
What do you think the amount of traffic will be? Will it be the same? Will it increase? And if it increases, how much do you think it will increase?
So we anticipate not a very large increase due to the capacity of these FedEx trucks. So currently now, at the end of the day, of our production day, one FedEx truck comes and picks up the majority of our packages. The remaining are done with local, what they call the drivers with CDLs, with the vendor is called MDS, Medical Delivery Services. And those are the drivers that take to local areas, meaning like a state that's adjacent to New Jersey. So New York or Pennsylvania, Maryland, etc.
I would submit Mr. Diamantopoulos to the questioning of the board.
Thank you. Okay, so, and just to recap, thank you for noting that the output of the product is negligent in terms of anything into the environment. and that would not change.
Yes.
But what you are stating is that traffic to and from the site may increase some amount, and I understand it may, you're not putting a number on it, but that's, I guess there is no traffic or civil, I don't know who Mr. Weber, you would have to speak to traffic to and from the site, which would be something considered within the EIS umbrella.
We have a traffic consultant that we've retained that's on reserve that could be called to be sworn in to give testimony in this matter. Michael Maris.
Fantastic. Mr. Vinayak, I guess before we move on to any other, did you want to have a question? I'm sorry for.
Right. So my question is to Mr. Diamantopoulos. Today, when you count your output, is that in pounds? Is that in number of capsules, or what is it?
It's a number of doses. So just to give you an idea of these doses, when we're talking about volume, so there's an activity, meaning radioactivity, that's a measurable amount in millicuries. But in order for you to understand the volumes that each patient dose is in a small vial, a 30 ml vial, that is filled up to about 20 to 25 mLs. So that's each patient dose, and we measure it in doses.
So if you keep the same doses, what you're making today versus once this building gets done, how much of an output you think will increase?
So we'd have to look at what forecasting we have, but I'm saying as far as the doses,
I'm
yes,
not talking about the sales, I'm just talking about the capacity that you have to produce.
so about 50%.
Okay, so the output will increase or potential capacity will increase by 50%. Now, how many times, how often in regular intervals do you guys do your environmental study internally?
Every day. Every day we do wipe surveys and also survey of our air monitoring every day.
So I have no doubt that it will be all fine, but I would still feel better if there is an environmental study or is done when the output is going above 50%, and they do internally our environmental study every day, how it put pressure on the environment with the new facility. I think we should just not waive that. We should think about it, consider it, and then make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vinayak. I want to turn to council for just a moment. Ed, based on what we're hearing, are you still in favor of us answering this traffic question? Would you recommend we do something differently at this juncture?
I think that when we talk about our environmental impact statement, it's a very broad look at the categories in it. It just does not take into account what one might consider environmental issues. It's a sort of a composite view of the environment with all of these things. And I think we need to be a little bit careful, because I know that they have a traffic expert. I know they have separate experts, and I think what we're talking about is not necessarily these discrete items, but the totality of those items at the end of the day. How does that all fit together and affect the environment, as opposed to how does traffic affect it? How does disposal affect it? How does the product affect it?
Right.
And I think that's the question that the board has to decide in terms of the environmental impact statement that's done. They put all this together in that kind of package, as opposed to individual aspects of it. So I think we should decide whether we want to hear a package as opposed to continuing. I mean, I think we've done well in trying to understand some of these impacts, but I think we have to look at it more, globally, so to speak, if we're talking about the environment.
I'm in agreement. I mean, I think we've gotten to the point, in this evening, and Mr. Weber, I appreciate it, and thank you so much for being prepared and having these individuals on standby to provide testimony. But the fact that we're, on the waiver request and have called in 6 witnesses is indicating that I think we as the board, in being stewards of our community, I think, you know, understandably, the you know, the proposed, the development, the use at the site has raises our environmental concerns, you know, on a number of different aspects. You're hearing stormwater concerns, the use in the building and emissions, as well as traffic to and from the site concerns. I think it does merit the completion of a full, complete EIS, you know, statement.
And if I can inquire of the board as to what time does the board usually stop taking testimony?
We have been concluding our meetings at 10:30 p.m. Is that what you
Alright.
mean, or?
Well, I'm looking at the time now. It's at 9 o'clock. I would like an opportunity for a 5-minute adjournment. Let me speak with Mr. Gunning and the clients. But my thought is at this point, we have to go through Mr. Gunning's testimony. We have to put on the testimony with regard to memorializing the discussions that he's had with the neighbors. At that point, we need the civil engineer to be recalled to go through his testimony. At that point, then we'll follow up with Mr. Maris to the extent there's any questions with regard to that. Mr. Diamantopoulos, if there's additional questions. And I'm not necessarily seeing that we're going to be able to wrap up tonight in any regard. So at that point, I'm thinking, well, this is a good introduction that the board has heard what's going on, but I need to speak with Mr. Gunning with regard to these issues so that I can get his assent.
I appreciate that. So is the mode you prefer for you to just turn off your cameras, or, you know, turn off, but just leave yourself in the room, but you know, mute yourself and you can turn your camera off and you can have a 5-minute recess? Would that work?
That would be fine, Madam Chairwoman.
All right, I'm happy to permit such. And if anybody else on the board would also like 5 minutes for a bio break, let's come back at 9:10 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, looks like members of our board are returning. We'll just wait another minute or two, hopefully for the applicant's return. And Eileen, let us know when you're back with us as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm afraid of turning off anything.
No, you did great.
For fear I can't turn it back on.
I understand. Okay. And Paul, as the planner, as always, if you had anything that you wanted to add or, raise any concerns, you're always welcome to share anything.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. You know I'm not bashful, so I'll speak up if I think it's appropriate. Thanks.
Perfect.
Beth?
Hi, Ed.
Yes, hi. On the break, I pulled up the environmental impact statement section of our ordinance, and if you would allow me, or if you'd like, when we recommence the meeting, I can just briefly explain what's in there, because this way then everyone has a picture of what the ordinance requires, as opposed to what one may think.
I think that would be a very useful moment of our time. Welcome back to council and our applicants. I don't know if you just heard what Mr. Buzak said, but he will possibly enlighten us to what Millburn Township ordinance states regarding the EIS.
That would be very helpful. And that was a question that Mr. Gunning himself had indicated, saying, I understand what the board is looking for. And let me understand what it is exactly that they need so that we can present it.
So Mr. Buzak, please. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. There's an introductory paragraph which just says the purpose of the EIS is to compile information that will enable the developer to minimize adverse effects on the environment. And then it sets forth when they're required. And of course, in this application, it is required unless the board waives it. But here are the contents of it, and I'll synopsize. I'm not going to read it verbatim. A description of the development specifying what is to be done during construction and operation, as well as how it is to be done, and alternate plans to achieve the objectives. Second one is the essence, I think, of it. An inventory of the following on-site environmental conditions and an assessment of the probable impact of the development upon them. And it lists those environmental conditions: water supply, hydrology, geology, soils and their properties, including capabilities and limitations, sewerage, aquifers, stormwater runoff, flooding, topography, slope, vegetation, wildlife habitat, aquatic organisms, noise characteristics and levels, land use, vehicular and pedestrian traffic, aesthetics, including the visual relationship to existing adjoining buildings, history, and archaeology. Air and water quality shall be described with reference to standards promulgated by the DEP, and soil shall be described with reference to the Soil Conservation Service categories and characteristics. Special attention shall be paid to critical environmental areas, including but not limited to waterways and floodplains, aquifer recharge areas, high water table, steep slopes, highly erodible soils, mature stands of native vegetation, and extraordinary wildlife nesting, feeding, or breeding grounds. That's the sort of the essence of it. And then there's some other inventory items, a listing of the licenses, permits, and approvals that will be needed by federal, state, or county law, and the status of those permits, an evaluation of any adverse environmental impacts that cannot be avoided, with particular emphasis placed on water and water pollution, increase in noise, storm drainage, sedimentation, siltation, effect upon vehicular and pedestrian traffic, increase in township services, consequences to the township's tax structure, damages to flora and fauna. And then steps necessary or steps to be taken to avoid or minimize these adverse environmental impacts, if any. And that's it. So it is, as I outlined earlier, it's sort of a holistic approach to all of these different aspects and putting them all together in one document. So thank you for the opportunity to pass that along.
Thank you. Mr. Weber, I lost, okay, I couldn't find you. Sorry, you moved on my screen. So wanted to, yeah, see, you asked for the recess, so
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. I've had a chance to speak with Mr. Gunning and the consultants. We will be preparing an EIS and submitting it to the board. We would ask that the board be carried to the next hearing without notice. That also will allow us to provide the board with a copy of the resolution that they were looking for. And if there were any additional documents at this point that the board was particularly interested in, perhaps I could request the chair to ask the board members if there were additional aspects of this application that they would like to see addressed. And that way we can come in with the specific responses to the board members' concerns and questions.
Absolutely. And I just want to say, I personally appreciate that. I think we as a board appreciate, you showing good faith by allowing us to have this information in front of us. So with that said, yes, to what you just stated, the EIS, you also mentioned I think you meant the 2015 previous memorialization on the site. Is there anything else members of the board would like to request that the applicant should provide, which you may not have received already?
I may have some. There are, sorry, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. There are some lighting drawings referred to in the drawing packet that we got, but it was from, I guess, the previous building owner. Can we get those?
We don't have the lighting study from 2015, but we can have the engineer go out and do a lighting study along the neighbor's back so that it's assured that we meet the lighting standards.
Okay, and Martha, are you good with all of the lighting averages and everything in that middle section? Because right now the drawings are showing 0 for all that stuff, saying to refer to the other drawing.
I really have to apologize. I have not had a chance to thoroughly review this application. My report will be forthcoming, but I had a family situation for the past few weeks and just have not been able to do a thorough review of the plans yet. So
I'm sorry to hear that, Ms. Callahan.
That's okay. That hopefully this opportunity will be a good chance for you to review. That said, whatever information, Mr. Weber, you can provide regarding the lighting, I think we would welcome.
Madam Chair, I know that there were comments made about this meeting with the neighbors and the 9 or 10 things that I think, or 7 or 8, whatever they were, that Mr. Weber went through. It may be useful for him to sort of put that in a letter or have his engineer put it in, or his app or his client, so that we
absolutely
what those concerns are, and we'll have him there as opposed to discerning him as he goes through them. Thank you.
Can I further request, because this is conversations with the neighbors who can this be something that is made public as well, made available to these neighbors so that they can confirm or respond, just to make sure that they feel it accurately portrays the conversation?
That can be done. Mr. Gunning has been in communication with them, and I would ask that Mr. Gunning continue that, and he'll distribute that letter.
And that will also be put on our on the website when we get it. It'll be uploaded, I think, by Eileen, so it'll be there as well for everyone.
Okay, thank you. And I see we have a vociferous member of the public who would like to comment. this is not the time yet. I know this meeting is quite non-traditional, but given the nature, let's get through this set of requests. But we do see you, and I will allow you to join us shortly. So hold that thought. But thank you. So other members of the board having questions, Mr. Phillips.
Just one thing, Madam Chairwoman, to follow up on Ed's suggestion on the details of the discussions with the neighbors. I think it would be helpful for the board if the applicant was able to prepare an exhibit supplementing sort of the landscaping plan, which would indicate where the new plantings would be and the fencing. I think that would help the board as part of its due diligence on the site plan review.
We will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we can get the list of their waste and what are the process of taking care of their waste would be very helpful. I guess this will also come in the environment studies, but just for the clarification, exactly what their waste are and how they take care of it.
We'll have that as part of the EIS.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. So because we have had a number of witnesses sworn in, but haven't provided a full testimony, which we typically do, allow full testimony, then questions from the board, and then questions from the public. Before we make the declaration of when we're going to carry to, I would like to invite this member of the public in. So Eileen, if you can bring, it was Corey Biller, I believe. Hi, good evening, welcome.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. My name, actually many of you know me, but my name is Corey Biller. I am one of the neighbors, and that's why I was vociferously just calling your attention to the fact that I was here, because we were talking a lot about sort of making sure the neighbors were aware of what was going on and including us, and we definitely appreciate that. And so I just wanted to sort of summarize from our perspective what's going on so far. First of all, I was around for their prior application, AAA's prior application in 2015, and I worked with them in 2015, and I do have to give them kudos and say that in 2015, there were many issues that were brought up, and they were very responsive to those issues. They addressed those issues, and ever since moving into the neighborhood, they have been a true community partner, as evidenced by the fact that, for example, just one of them, every year for the Millburn Short Hills July 4th, they are the highest donor for the event, or they contribute the highest amount that we ask for. So they definitely are a corporation that's interested in being a community partner. We got the notice that this application was going to be heard on January 6th, sometime basically 2 weeks left in the year, somewhere in the December 18th, 20th timeframe. At that point, a few of the neighbors and I got together, spoke, and I said I'd reach out to AAA, given that I've had prior conversations in the relationship with them, and see if they'd be willing to talk to us about our concerns. They responded within an hour or so of my email, and it was the Friday before Christmas Eve, and they scheduled a call with us at 9 a.m. the next Monday. So they immediately got on the phone with us. They did hear our concerns. To the point about memorializing our concerns, we did draft a few bullet points, and I can send it to the planning board. Our concerns primarily are around two things, and they are light and noise pollution. Their back of their facility abuts the back of many of our properties. And so with parking lots and windows, the light emanates and the noise emanates from both windows and parking lots. So we discussed the issues that we had with them and came up with proposals. And to date, they seem to be agreeing to all of our proposals. They haven't sort of balked at any of them. And those proposals are a fence for the parking lot, because when you have these the production site is a 24-hour site because of the nature of the product. And so you have cars coming and going at all hours of the night. They did put some vegetation in because of concerns in 2015. Unfortunately, the vegetation is not thick enough, is not mature enough. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that any just vegetation will stop truck and car lights from coming through. So they've agreed to put in an application with you, the planning board, to install a fence along the parking lot to block the lights. I would encourage you to expedite that application when they put it through so that they can start planning on it. They've also agreed to put mature evergreens in to help dampen some of the noise, also further block some of the light. And quite frankly, aesthetically, it's a lot nicer to have trees than just sort of a big fence in your backyard. They have agreed to redirect the lights, and they've even indicated that some of them might need to be taken off of light stanchions and put on the building and redirected down. They actually, in talking about something, the environment, they have even indicated that they would consider reinforcing the riverbank similar to what they did for behind 57 Willow. They reinforced the riverbank to prevent deterioration of the riverbank, which if you look, where it's reinforced looks like a nice solid riverbank. The other part of it behind the new building, I guess it's 45, doesn't look as sure and solid. And so they said they were going to talk to the engineer about reinforcing the riverbank. So all this being said is that, similar to what they did today, where they agreed to prepare a environmental impact study, when we came to them with issues, they've been responsive. And so I appreciate the planning board taking the neighborhood and residents' concerns into account. And we can definitely send you the bullet points of what we've requested and what they've agreed to do. And just, I encourage you to the extent that they file that application for the trees and for the fence. I know they have to go for DEP applications as well, that you try to expedite it so that we can get that done as soon as possible, because as I've said to them, there's some new families that moved in that have young kids, but even worse is there are some retirees that back there. And I think retirees will cry and complain a lot more about their sleep than babies do. So if we can just expedite this, I think it helps everybody in the process. And so that's all we wanted to say, is that, look, we do have concerns. The concerns are being addressed. I have faith that AAA is going to sort of walk the talk that they've been saying, because of my prior experience and as evidenced by, quite frankly, just today, what they've done with you guys. So that's all I had to say. That's all we had to say. And so we will send you a copy of these bullet points after the meeting or sometime this week.
If I might, Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
But Mr. Biller, unfortunately, that's not the practice that the board has, and that's not the manner in which these hearings proceed. The applicant can submit supplemental information as part of their application, and that's what they're doing here. And we asked the applicant's counsel to submit a number of things. You will have an opportunity after the applicant has completed his testimony for each of the witnesses, actually, to ask questions, to raise any points, and you will have an opportunity after they've completed their application to submit anything that you want to submit on the record at a meeting such as this by sharing a screen and then further providing a hard copy. But we don't have any members of the public submit unilaterally documentation, because this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. So
no, I did forget that we haven't even got to the application yet, actually. Sorry.
That's fine. Just if you would just hold the thought, as they say, and I know you'll attend the next meeting, and you'll be able to have the opportunity to do whatever it is you need to do, but you can't do it in advance. So
no, duly noted.
And I'll speak with Mr. Gunning, but I would expect that he will direct the transmittal of the list of recommendations that AAA is willing to engage in, and share that beforehand with Mr. Biller, so that we can incorporate the neighbors' concerns and then provide what we understand to be that document to the board, thereby honoring Mr. Buzak's astute observation.
Wonderful. I think that's a an elegant and efficient way to address that. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Villa, for your comments tonight. That's great to hear. That said, Mr. Buzak, are we able to, we would make a motion to carry without request of notice? Is that how?
Yes, but we need, I see Eileen looking at something.
Yeah, looking at a calendar.
To see.
We have,
we can
Mr.
fit
Weber,
this-
unfortunately, I don't think the next meeting is going to be wide open. We have a number of heavy hitting applications that we're starting our year.
Yeah, we have the Woodland Chatham on for the 20th, and we have the Wells Fargo on for the February 3rd. And we do have an application in the queue waiting to be deemed complete, but so this would have to be carried to the second meeting of February, which is, I think it's
17th, is that?
February 17th, yes.
That will allow for the plans by PSNS to incorporate the agreement that has been reached, or the agreement that is intended to be reached with the neighbors, for that document to go to the neighbors, for the EIS to be prepared, and for all of that to be submitted to the board's professionals for their review prior to the 17th. So even though that's a little bit longer than we were looking for, it means that by the time that all the documents are gathered, drafted, and presented, it will allow for that judicious review in anticipation of the hearing.
Okay, thank you. And should we, I'm trying to ask you, when can you get us all of these things as promised? You know, what is a realistic time frame for you to get and, you know, review and submit an EIS document?
I'm looking to Mr. Patel.
Yeah, so I would say about 4 weeks from now. So that will still be before the meeting. Again, I need to verify that, confirm, but
Right, that's fine. I guess ultimately it would not be ideal if the planning board is receiving the EIS on Monday with a meeting on Wednesday, you know, just to not give us sufficient time. So I would say if we can have at least a week as the goal.
Yes.
So it looks as though 4 weeks would be February 3rd.
I would say
Right,
at least before, minimum a week before the meeting, yeah.
Perfect. Of a minimum of a week before the meeting, I think that would give us sufficient time, to get it distributed and reviewed. Thank you.
And would the board, now this is directed to Ms. Davitt, we're going to be providing a series of documents. So you want to wait for them in one package, or would you prefer for them to come in as they are prepared and are ready to be submitted?
You can send them as they come in. That way I can get what I need to get up on the website and get it, you know, moving through the queue pretty easily.
Thank you.
Okay.
So with that, Madam Chair, I would ask that you announce that this hearing will be carried to February 17 at 7 p.m. It will be conducted in the same fashion as tonight's meeting, a virtual meeting. The information for access is on the website, or will be on the is on the website, right? Is that correct, Eileen?
Yeah, it's a little different from now on. This is the same Zoom information. It will be used for every meeting. So we don't have new Zoom. So whatever I gave you for this meeting, this is going to be the same login information for every meeting for 2021.
Okay.
One minor correction to Mr. Buzak, this meeting will start at 7:30 p.m.
Oh, sorry.
On the 17th.
Wrong board.
That's okay.
And there'll be no further notice required.
There will be no further notice required for us to carry this application to February 17th, 2021. And all agenda and materials are available on the Millburn Planning Board website. We'll see you here on Zoom platform. That's my motion. Does somebody need to second it?
Not that we need, do we need a motion? Yeah.
No, he's saying no, we
No,
don't.
we don't need a motion. We could just carry it
Carried.
administratively.
Okay.
Mr. Buzak, do you need an extension of time?
Ms. Babbitt is the one who monitors that, so I'm going to pass it to her.
Well, we grant an
Probably
extension. of
so.
Yeah, we will, because their deadline to decide would be January 16th. So we will need a consent to an extension of time.
Okay, we'd like that extension through the end of February.
Okay.
That's agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, members of the board.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your patience with us and bearing with us on this platform. That said, do we have a motion to, there is no other business tonight, right? This is all I have. Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second.
Second. I second.
Thank you all. Happy New Year. Be safe, and we will see you. We'll see some of us sooner than later, but all of us by the 17th.
Take
Have a
care.
good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
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 Good night.